Chairman Jacobs couldn't be with us this morning, so I'm going to limp through the Finance and Personnel Committee agenda. First on our agenda is a roll call, James.
Trustee Baker,
Present.
Trustee Boyd, Trustee Cottle,
Here.
Trustee DeLay,
Here.
Trustee Jacobs, Trustee Smith,
Here.
Trustee Vanek,
Here.
Trustee Wright,
Here.
Trustee Carpenter.
Present.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. First on our agenda is approval of the minutes. Are there any corrections, additions, changes that any of our committee would like to? If not, I'd like to have a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Motion-
Second.
It's been made and seconded. All in favor of approval of the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. We have an action item, and the presenter is Joe and Ron Malone.
Thank you, Chairman Smith. I'll be presenting an action item for you on changes to University Policy 160, which is our naming policy. That policy transferred over to this board from TBR pretty much intact at the time. As we've gone through the last couple of years, we've seen some things that have occurred at the state, particularly in regard to the requirement for matching funds for our capital construction projects. So we felt it was time to kind of bring this policy up to date. Most of the revisions are technical. The one change that's in there that's substantive in there is that we now have a base minimum for all building namings of no less than 25% of the public cost for that. So if you have a $100 million building, then it'd take $25 million to name that. In the past, that had been balanced, kicked around with varying levels based on the cost of the building, so we put that minimum in there. There is a sliding scale and some extenuating factors that come in there. For example, if a donor says, I want to build this building and it's not on our capital projects list, they're expected to fund the building. We don't, if there's not state funds available, it's expected to be the responsibility of the donor. But most of the changes are technical, and so, Mr. Chairman, I'd be happy to answer any questions about 160.
So is this policy similar to what other peer universities
It
have
is.
in place?
It is, and as I said, this transferred over to all the LGIs pretty much intact from TBR. It was a state policy that had been there for years. The institutions are now, as we've seen the state change their philosophy on matching grants for buildings, we're all taking a look at it. But the policy is very similar, not only to our LGI peers, but we've looked at other schools nationally, very similar. The biggest difference is institutions tend to set their giving levels based on the philanthropic potential of the population.
Thank you.
Have we historically had people give 25% of buildings?
No, not at that. What's happened is, and our building costs have gone up so high. If you look at our science building, that was the largest building we built at $140 million. At that time, it was almost twice what the previous high in the state had done. So, no, we've not had anything at that level. Most of the buildings that you would find named on this campus were not named for philanthropic contributions. But in the instances where they have, the Kennan Hall of Fame, the Martin Building, they would all fall under that 25% requirement.
Well, what it means is there won't ever be a big building name. I mean, we've had one $20 million gift in history. That was unsolicited, but, it was part of the deal that we named it after him, Mr. Miller. But, which is fine, we can change this again, but, we can't build anything for 40 or 50 million. I mean, that's weird.
But you can still, as I understand it, you can still name someone have a building.
You can name components and everything else. And, Mr. Chairman, this building, for example, $10 million gift, the purchase price was about 12. So we have been able in the past to generate those gifts. And quite frankly, I think this has always been the debate in the philanthropic community, is you want the gift to be such a stretch, because it is the single most valuable thing an institution has to offer a donor. Naming of colleges and buildings are far and away the highest ticket item, if the most valued ticket item for a naming, and everything kind of trickles down from there. So if you set that level too low, you effectively influence everything, all the namings below that.
I agree, but it means there won't be any buildings named after. I mean, this building would be 30 million now, if you built this building. And like, and you're right, but anyway, okay. Two other just questions on chairs of excellence, and I may be confusing chair of excellence with the state of Tennessee program. The state, because Joey invested $1.5 million or $1 million with us, and the state matched.
2.5.
I mean, is that almost correct?
Yeah, the amount's a little off. The Chairs of Excellence program is the former state program that's no longer in existence. We were able to get that one-time grant for that. That was done in the 90s by the state of Tennessee as a means to bring more accomplished scholars to the university campuses. It was a dollar-for-dollar match. Until Chairman Jacobs's gift 5 or 6 years ago, there hadn't been one done in 15 years.
Well, I know we spun several of the Miller gifts in, and
Those were done.
doubled our money.
Those were done in the 90s. That was sort of the latter part of that program.
Well, I mean, I see on page 4 of 6, Chair of Excellence, minimum $2 million. None of the ones we have gotten would have qualified for that.
Well, at the time, if you look at inflation, they would have been relative to that amount. The gifts, most of the chairs, when they originally was set up, the minimum match required at the state was $500,000, and the maximum was $1 million. They didn't go up. The reason these have gone up so substantially is that on most campuses, they found very quickly that they were underfunded. Even at $1 million, there wasn't adequate funding provided, even with the state match, to support the research, the creative activity, the graduate students that tend to come along with those professorships. So that's a pretty consistent number around the country. That's a relatively.
So, Joe, but I'm confused, Joe, because the language that you're referring to in that on that page, it says, provide general guidelines for named endowment categories, and then the asterisk language says suggested minimum reflect a baseline. So does that mean that you can in fact go below the 2.5 million on a chair of excellence?
There's no longer a program.
Oh,
so that's why. But the reason we did that, Trustee Karbowak, is that what we find is depending on the discipline, the salary, if we were to hire a professor today in nuclear chemistry, since we don't have that program, those people make $250,000 to $300,000 a year, and they have about $1 million a year need in research support. $1 million endowment's not going to support that, obviously. So what we would do is a program like that would have a much higher responsibility than a program where it was predominantly done with teaching and basic research.
So the suggested minimum does not imply that you can go lower.
Correct.
I'm not sure that that's really clear in that language.
We can fix that. We can fix that.
I was really referring to the state program, and I wonder if that's something we should encourage the state to do. Joey's very generous, so he would have given anything, but to double his money was
That's a lot.
a huge incentive, and on the Miller money, they had 2 or 3, so they took $3 million and made 6 out of it. So that's really what I know they're not related hardly, but that's what I was, okay.
And, Mr. Chairman, this isn't part of the philanthropy report, but I will tell you that is one of the things that Tennessee lacks. That is one of the reasons why we fall behind a number of our peer institutions in other states. Those states have matching programs for dollar for giving, and the state does not have that. So that is an
Well,
impacts us.
maybe we should consider a strategy to encourage that. We have state at this moment has plenty of money, and that might be, I bet they got cut out with when we had the budget crisis.
Trustee Carbayak, if we dropped the word suggested and just started that with minimums reflect the baseline, would that accomplish
that
what you
would-
want?
yeah.
Okay, we can do that.
Otherwise, it's
Absolutely, absolutely.
So, Joe, are you asking us to approve all through page 23?
That sounds, that's,
60 or 70, isn't it?
well, what you've got is a
Or-
red line copy, you've got a red line copy and a
Yeah.
clean copy. So you're approving the policy, the cleaned up copy with that change to eliminate suggested.
Okay. Why does a business school have an NA when everybody else is on record?
Because it's already named.
Okay, so that's off. We're
It's
gonna
off.
maintain as is.
Yes.
Okay, good. That's fine. A little asterisk would have been important there. Okay.
That's
Okay, so the Building Naming Advisory Committee, who is that?
It's chaired by Alan Thomas. I'm vice chair. Then it has members, faculty, alumni, foundation board. I'd have to go back and look at the number. I think there's 4 faculty, a department chair. It's a university committee. It's one of our standing committees.
I'd suggest we put the vice chairman of our board on there. I mean, I think the board ought to have some say-so in that. Well, or any board member.
No, it's
but-
fine, it's fine, it's just,
You know what?
I think from
I hope we get all kind of rattles in the cage and go forward on these numbers. It'd be a bright day.
It sure will. It will, no question. So,
I'll make a motion, we approve with that change, adding a board member to naming committee.
Second.
Make sure I'm clear on that, Mr. Chairman.
I'm
What
sorry,
page is that?
I was kind of stumbling on that. On page 19, it mentions, I think for the first time in these documents, the Building Naming Advisory Committee.
Okay, so in paragraph 3,
What's the last paragraph on that 19?
right, so in section 3, process.
Yes, sir. First sentence.
Okay. I guess my one concern on that issue is regards to university committees, engaging board members within that committee structure, which is a separate activity of the well, I shouldn't say separate, but it's an activity of the university from an administrative standpoint. Obviously, the board has approval authority and governs overall, but that's just my one concern with regards to adjusting the membership of that particular committee beyond what we've done with other university committees.
Well, there's nowhere in these documents where who's on that committee is in there.
it is a
Who's
standing
on-
university
who's
committee,
on
Mr.
it?
Chairman.
I think the issue that our secretary is raising is one that actually, with that suggestion, raised some concerns with me too, Mr. Chairman, because it's a day-to-day operation of the university. The board does have the final decision. That committee makes the recommendation. And so I'd be concerned that we're setting a precedent that would be problematic.
Well, that, of course, that doesn't concern me, but I'm willing to give on that. Have they ever met?
We
I
meet.
mean, I'm not trying to be cross-examining you, but they don't meet on a yearly basis.
We probably, during the academic year, we will meet electronically. We don't meet face-to-face typically, but we'll meet 3 to 6 times a year.
Well,
It's
send-
met
send
as
me- send
events
me-
come up,
All
as
right,
naming opportunities
I'll
come
withdraw
up.
mine, but send me the minutes of your last meetings, and I'd like to see the minutes of what's discussed.
I think
it
the only
would
other
be helpful
amendment
for
was
a
this
board member
removing the
to
word
understand
suggested.
what the conversation of the committee is.
I think the only other amendment, James, was to
Be
remove.
drop
the word
suggested.
I'm sorry.
So when you go.
Drop the word suggested in the.
Yes.
We did that. Okay.
So is there a new motion to approve the policy with the deletion of the word suggested in reference to the baseline contributions for endowed faculty support?
Yes, I'll make that motion.
I don't think getting the minutes needs to be part of the motion, for heaven's sakes. Right?
Yes.
Okay. Yes, it does, or yes,
Yes, it does.
Or you agree with me? Yeah, okay.
I'll second the motion.
All in favor?
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll turn it over to Ron Malone.
Kathy Musselman, you going to take over this one?
Now, Ron Malone will do the other
Okay.
policy revisions.
All right, I thought Joe was having,
Facilities.
sorry.
Traffic. The traffic man,
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
parking.
Mr. President, thank you to the committee this morning. I am Ron Malone. I serve as the Vice President for Events and Transportation here at Middle Tennessee State University, and I've been asked to present and request approval to changes and/or modifications to two policies within my area. The first one will be Policy 100, Use of Campus Property and Facility Scheduling, who thankfully, primary architects, Quintina Burton, who's the Director of Events, Event Coordination, and Justin Reed, who is the Director of Student Unions, are here today just in case some of your follow-up questions get to be a little much. But we will start with Policy 100, Use of Campus Property and Facility Scheduling. The updates and the changes to Policy 100 followed basically a twofold approach to reorganize the document so that it was much more user-friendly to our end users, and number two, to change event definitions to match the event type language that the campus schedulers use to communicate with clients. For example, we now exclusively use sponsored, co-sponsored, and external. Potentially ambiguous verbiage like affiliated and entity were removed. Two actual changes were made to the document. In Section 2, under Scope, you will see that there was a link added to University Policy 103. This is a policy that addresses free speech on campus. Within 103, University Legal updated the definition of a spontaneous outdoor usage from that of 25 people or less to 50 people or less. The link was added to maintain consistency between policies 100 and 103. The second change and other additions are the priority scheduling sections. That would be in Section 4B3, which now gives recurring student events scheduling priority in student affairs spaces, and it also grants university-sponsored events campus-wide priority scheduling over external events. These are the changes for Policy 100. Questions?
Questions, comments? I have a motion.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Want to make sure these meld in with free speech. We adopted Chicago principles several meetings ago. And I'm assuming there's some coordination there.
Yes, sir.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Under Policy 775, which addresses traffic, parking, and safety enforcement. In number one, I think there are three changes in this policy. In Section 4M, which specifically identifies our 24-hour reserved parking spaces, the term all, I quote, all residential parking areas was added here in order to better protect residential parking spaces located adjacent to the students' on-campus dorms and their apartments. This change greatly assists our on-campus students returning to their residence after being out, maybe picking up groceries or packages, because there is a less possibility of them finding their designated parking already occupied by unauthorized vehicles. The second change, Parking and Transportation Services also felt that it was important to specifically identify 3 other reserved parking locations which are physically signed with different enforcement times. Also located in Section 4M, they are 4 health service parking spaces located in the rec center lot, which are reserved from 7 a.m. until 5 p.m., 8 library staff spaces located in the Bragg lot, which are reserved from 6:30 p.m. until 11 p.m., and 2 recording industry spaces located in the Main Street lot, where the new recording studio is located, which are reserved from 6 p.m. until 10 p.m. Our last change, and I think the most impactful, is in Section 4.0, which identifies the weekly hours, Monday through Friday, of parking enforcement. It reduces the general parking enforcement hours from Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 5:30 p.m., to Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. Now, although this is seemingly insignificant, this change is likely the most impactful, because with the exception of the previously mentioned reserved spaces that I spoke about, it opens up the entire campus for evening and night students seeking closer parking, as it opens up the entire campus for those students who are seeking parking for their classes, and also to late afternoon and early evening events hosted by Tucker Theater, Wright Music Building, athletics, and other departmental activities. We've received many requests over the years to implement such a policy, and I'm pleased that we are able to do so now. It's all been made possible due to our investment of installing parking gates at 3 strategic campus locations: the nursing lot, the Davis Science lot, and the honors lot. By restricting access to these gated lots and their 269 spaces after 4:30, to all but faculty or staff members displaying the appropriate hang tag, Parking and Transportation Service ensures that these convenient spaces are always available to our late afternoon and evening faculty and staff. Any questions?
I got
Yes, sir.
I got a question on that. We talked about this. There's a lot close to the baseball field that is not full, but baseball people can't park there. Does this 4:30 address that lot?
Addresses that lot. I think you're talking about the nursing lot?
I don't have a clue. We've got to ask the athletic director, but I don't know.
Baseball,
Yeah,
Is it the nursing lot?
nursing.
It's the nursing
across
lot.
from the baseball stadium.
yes, sir.
That's one of the
Several
gated-
times it's.
That's the gated lot.
That's
yes,
one of
sir.
the nursing lots, one of the gated
Yeah.
lots. I don't know, are they talking about down at the baseball field, all along the front of
We're
the
talking
baseball?
about the nursing lot, but there'll be 2 cars in it
Yeah,
and no place to park on the baseball.
Right.
And they won't let them park in there.
because it's gated.
Now, maybe the 4:30 thing may, will that lot be open now at 4:30?
No, sir. No, sir. That is the reason that we gated that particular lot, so that we could reserve it for faculty and staff who are teaching night and evening classes. The remaining spaces all around campus would be available. Any lot to the north or to the south would be available for baseball parking, but that lot would be reserved for faculty and staff teaching evening classes.
I'd like for you to take a look at that because it's underutilized and, I mean, I only see it 20 times a year, not 365. Is there a way to do that, Chris? I mean, am I in left field, no pun intended on that?
It's behind home plate, yeah, but that does present some problems for us when there's an empty lot, right across the street from the baseball stadium, and those kind of things, particularly on Friday evenings in particular. So it's just I hear people talk about that.
I think this past year, one of the options that we gave to the athletic department as far as use of the nursing lot was that we would open the arm gate earlier on Friday afternoons in order to accommodate baseball fans. Generally speaking, we try to make sure that there is a parking lot available for faculty and staff during the most required times of the week. Monday through Thursday are the dates that we typically have the highest demand. And so that is one of the reasons why it's not a challenge to do that on Fridays to accommodate the
So
baseball.
Friday and Saturday, that gate will be left open?
Oh, yeah, the gate is open on weekends.
5 o'clock?
Mhm.
Or 5?
This
I
is
know it's
strictly,
micromanaging, Mr. President, but
No,
I say
Ron.
that, and they look at me and say,
yes,
Well, it's a balance. The last thing we want to have to deal with is faculty and students, particularly when the class is not being able to park in a lot that's next to the academic building. So I think it's a situation where we perhaps need to take a look at it and do some assessment as to, what the capacity is. But I will always give priority to our faculty and to our students when they need to teach or when a student needs to park next to a building. That has to be our number one priority.
Of course, there's a difference between agreement and policy. So if you get somebody that's hardcore in that department there, you got your war. So kind of soften that up by statement.
we can do that, sir. Yes, sir.
do
one of-
we have a motion? I'm kind of lost, to tell you the truth. Do we have a motion, Chris?
Is it amended or is it staying the way it is?
I think we're on the same motion unless Ron amended. I'd like for the minutes to show that they're going to try to work
Yeah.
with. I'm not trying to take any spaces away from students or teachers, but if it's empty, we also have people who give $10,000 too.
So I will move that the policy as presented by Ron be adopted.
I'll second that. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And we got Kathy.
All right, Kathy, you're up.
Good morning.
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 Promise to be quick today.
Thank you.
Annually, we are required to report to the Education Committee of the Senate and House of Representatives activities of our grievances filed by our classified staff for demotions or suspensions or terminations. Before you today is a report that we have submitted that we had no report to make to them of any that filed a grievance based on the termination or demotion for this past year.
Amazing. Any questions of Kathy? Thank you very much. Joseph, you're next.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Hopefully they'll get the slides up where you can see them. I think you've got a handout in front of you. If you don't, there we go. Last year was a great year. I could stop with that one. I think I would cover pretty much all of it. We set an institutional record for fundraising, beat the previous year by our record by a little over $3 million. And I think that's one of the things that we're really, really excited about, is that we've got a strong base to move forward in the next year. But you can see in there, the other piece, we had a 13.5% increase in donors. Athletics had a great year, as we've talked about already, but it was a great year all across campus. You can see we did over $2 million in basic and applied. Liberal arts had their greatest year ever. Business did about $1.6 million. So all of that was fantastic, and we feel like we're in a strong position to move forward. Now, one of the things about moving forward, some of you may remember that Pat Branham was our Executive Director of Development. Pat worked with a number of you. Pat decided back in the spring that being a grandmother was a lot more important than working for us, and she retired and moved back to Chattanooga. We were very fortunate to hire a gentleman who's been on campus now for 7 days, Mark, if I've got it right, Mr. Mark Clark. I'd like to introduce Mark. Mark, you'll stand up. Mark comes to us via the University of Tennessee, Tennessee Tech, and the University of Illinois. Mark will be responsible for our day-to-day operations with our college-based fundraisers. And if we don't reach $17 million next year, it's Mark's fault. So just leave it at that.
What I thought.
But in your packet, you've got 3 summary sheets that kind of just highlight some of the activity of the year. Just 2 or 3 things that I would call to your attention as you look through those. And we've talked about this before. The amazing thing about higher education philanthropy is how few gifts are actually part of the impact. Top 10% of our gifts last year represented over 90% of the dollars we raised. 10 gifts alone were about half. And that trend has been consistent for the last decade. So when we talk about those major gifts, those really impactful gifts, Mr. Chairman, those naming kinds of gifts, those are what move the needle. That's where we see the impact, and that's where we see the greatest potential. We've got a lot of things going on that you're going to be over the next few months you're going to hear about. So we feel like even with the challenge of trying to do $17 million again, we've got some foundation to work from. So we feel very, very good about that. But one of the things that as you see in here, and if you look at that 5-year report, which is the second sheet in there, you see that probably the 2 things that move our needle more than anything else are planned gifts and athletics. Planned gifts move them because 25 years ago, this campus really did not work and lay a foundation of planned giving. That's been something we've done in the last 15 to 20 years, and we are now starting to see the benefit of that. They tell us that it takes about 20 years for a planned gift to mature. Right now, we have about $40 million in expectancies lined up that we think will start coming in over the next 15 to 20 years. Great thing about that, that gives us a strong base of $2 to $3 million a year moving forward that we can start to begin to count on. And so that's really important as we think about how we reach these $17, $18 million numbers in the future. I get asked a lot, and I know this is a little small, you'll have to use the sheet in front of you, how we compare with our peers. In the past, you've heard me talk about the Council for Aid Education did a national ranking. Last year, they gave up on that, and they decided that it was very difficult for an institution to define broadly who your peers were. And we'll discuss in a minute why that is. But a lot of it, there's factors that even within our category as a major comprehensive, you had alumni populations as small as 70,000, as large as 200,000. That alone has a huge impact on your philanthropy. So they allow the institutions to start making comparisons. Well, the first place we started, we wanted to see what our peers do. And so here you've got the in-state peers on both the UT system and the LGIs.
Is that in here, Joe?
That's going to be that's in the handout. Pat should have. It's in your folder. It's in your folder.
Okay.
So should be the second page of your folder. But that gives you an idea of where we stand relative to our peers. I think one of the things that you'll notice in there is East Tennessee State does extremely well because they're medical school. That is the driver on that campus, and that makes a big difference.
Not in here.
I think it's in this one.
It was on the table with.
The table
Annual
handout.
report.
It was in the front part of mine.
Right here.
I got you. I got this in this up here.
But that gives you some perspective of what in-state does. The last year the VSE did calculations on major comprehensives, we were in the top 25% nationally in terms of our fundraising. Now, one of the things that impacts that, as I mentioned, is when you look at our institutions, our higher ed institutions, there's a handful of programs that really drive what happens in your philanthropic numbers. Obviously, the largest one is your alumni population. And when you look at major comprehensives around the country, and in fact, we just use all public institutions, alumni populations vary from 85,000 to over 300,000. So you can see that even doing the same amount of work and performing at the same level, depending on your alumni population, is going to have a large impact on your fundraising. We said athletics impacts that across all the FBS programs. In 2021, the smallest program raised a little less than $1 million, and the largest program raised over $100 million strictly for athletics. Big mover in terms of the needle for you. Presence of a medical school or center tends to be the third largest driver of that. Colleges of engineering and business are the biggest academic providers of that, and professional schools. So all of those combined, when you start looking at those, that really shows you why it's somewhat difficult to make an apples-to-apples comparison across the system. Even in state, we look at places like East Tennessee State has a medical school that drives that very, very heavily. Engineering schools at Knoxville, Memphis, Tennessee Tech, and Chattanooga all impact their philanthropy. Just to give you a quick summary of where we are today, and this would be 2021 numbers, and the reason being we don't have numbers from the state, so I have to go back a year to give you a sense of where we are in terms of our total assets. In June 30th of last year, we had just shy of $90 million in the foundation's endowment that the foundation board oversees. The State Chairs of Excellence, on which you referenced earlier, Chairman Smith, has about $48 million in it that benefit MTSU, and we have about $3.5 million in external trusts. So today we have a little over $141 million of funds invested that directly benefit our students on this campus and faculty. That's where we draw the earnings from. Those are the things that drive our scholarships, our faculty awards, our program support, and our athletic department. So that's a fairly significant number. And that puts us among our peers in the old evaluation. That would put us in the top half.
In thinking about our budget, could we consider the revenue that comes, could we consider the money that comes off of that as revenue? Is that one, because I know we talk about it a lot, the revenue producing.
It's not revenue. It's not revenue. No, it's not revenue. No, it's not a revenue production. Now, it is part of our budget. We do budget and count that for scholarship dollars and things like that, but it is not part of revenue. No.
So when I hear other institutions that have a endowment of $300 million or something like that, that's what this number is.
That's what that number is. And you do need to be mindful of the fact that if it's a private institution, those dollars, a lot of those dollars in privates are generated they're provided to turn the electricity on and provide faculty salaries. They are used, they use that much more for operations. 95% of the dollars that we have in our endowment are dedicated to specific purposes. And that's everything from endowed professorships to scholarships to athletic endowments. All of those are very narrowly defined by gift agreements that we have with each of our donors. So those dollars are tightly restricted. They help us offset expenses, but they're not something you consider general budget. The other asset we have is our Miller Coliseum and Foundation House, which is worth about $20 million. As we look to the future, there's going to be challenges in philanthropy, and we know that. I serve on a national panel that's been looking at what's going on in the philanthropic community, particularly at what they're considering mid-sized institutions. What they're very in tune with is that, as you'll see in that second bullet, the rich get richer. Over the last decade, the growth in philanthropy has been in the top 100 wealthiest institutions. Most of the money still tends to go to the Harvards, the Yales, the Vanderbilts, the public institutions that have large endowments, large staff, and large revenue streams. Mid-sized institutions are challenged. Part of that is the salaries that are out there. This has become an extremely competitive job market. I think we start about every one of our group discussions with what is your current staffing and salary situation? And I have not got a single person in a group of more than 25 from around the country that doesn't think that's the biggest problem they've got. It's the real challenge. Competition and benefits, because again, anytime we hire someone like Mark, we're competing with University of Tennessee, Vanderbilt, Auburn, UAB, Duke, Georgia Tech. They're all competing for the same talent. And the talented people right now can go anywhere they want. And that market supports them. The other thing is the benefits question. We're getting a lot of requests lately for work from home, things like that, that traditionally have not been part of the workplace. That impacts our ability to hire people. I think you would hear that from most of my colleagues, and that's what they're seeing as well in the people they're looking for. Last thing is the workload. Right now, nationally, around the country, for institutions like ours, you will have 1.5 FTEs dedicated to fundraising for every $1 million you raise. So if you said on average, we were doing $15 million, we'd need a staff of about 23 to be on peer average. Right now, we're at about 1 staff person per every $1.5 million raised. So we've got that a little reversed. But But that is something, there is a definite correlation. You heard Chris talk about it earlier this morning. Dr. McPhee's mentioned it. We put a significant investment in our athletic program. It's paid off. Bring talented people in, put them in the workspace. They will generate revenue for you. And that's one of the things that we are constantly looking for, is to try and keep the best people here so that we can maximize the opportunity that's presented to us. Last bullet on there, the real challenges out there is we are in a over 10-year decline in alumni participation and giving. Now, a lot of people jimmy the numbers up, and they'll come up with ways of telling you that they're doing 15, 18% alumni giving. Nationally, alumni giving is 8.5%. That's publics and privates. For most comprehensive mid-sized institutions, it's between 4 and 6% alumni participation. And that has been a trend that has been creeping downward for the last decade. So, but we do, as I said at the start, we had a great year, and we are extremely excited about next year. There are, as I said, I think by the end of November when we have a meeting, there'll be some announcements and things that are going to really revolutionize, I think, our campus, going to transform the campus and put us on, I think, solid ground toward keeping that $15 to $17 million level, which we've all felt like for a while was optimum for this campus. Any questions?
I got a clarification question. So we're 95% dedicated giving.
Correct.
So I'm trying to work this out in my mind, because this has been something that I've thought about over a long period of time with the different universities that I've been at. If we increased unrestricted, if we increased the size of the endowment with some unrestricted funds, would that help level out what we experience with state funding and tuition and fees? Like, because we do this a lot with tuition and fees. We're worried every year, but and then we worry about state funding. If we increased the unrestricted foundation or endowment, would that give us a little more latitude to help level that out a little?
I'll give you a quick answer on
Yeah.
that. Every good preacher has a project. Girls' basketball uniforms, new steeple, and people don't give unrestricted. I mean, people don't just give and say, hey, do with it what you want to do it.
Okay.
They give because
Well, see, that
they
answers
want-
that question for me.
They want
Right.
a scholarship, or they want a baseball field.
I couldn't have said it better. When we have done unrestricted asks, they are almost always our worst response rate. People want to give to something that they are passionate about. And I think that's the message we really preach, not only to our foundation board, we say it to everybody that's a donor for us. We want people to find something they're passionate about, something they care about, and then invest in that.
Well, let
And
me rephrase the question then. If we increased the amount of academic giving, would that help level those?
It would, but that's not.
But nobody's going to give to
that's not
academics, right?
se- At the moment, that's not sexy.
Right, nobody's going to give to the general academic.
Well, they do. I think part of that is, and one of the things we encourage all of our departments and colleges to do, you need definitely two accounts. You need a scholarship account, and you need an unrestricted operating account. And I will tell you that obviously it's about 2 to 1 on the dollars will go to scholarships over the, but even to the chairman's point, at least it gets it to a level. I graduated in marketing. At least that money is going to go into the marketing department, going to make the marketing department better. So we encourage that and support that. We've asked all of our deans and chairs to do that. It helps, but again, when you're even at 17 million, if you got 10% unrestricted, divide across the campus, that's a little over $1 million. Chris is going to get about 700,000 of that going into the athletic program. So it doesn't go a long way, unfortunately.
Is the 17 million cash, or does that include pledges?
That is cash. And you bring up an interesting point.
Because there's two times that in pledges in somewhere.
In some places, one of the things that has been a challenge in higher education, but with the impact of campaigns, when you do a formal campaign, essentially you count everything. You count pledges. So when we did our $100 million campaign, we counted the total of the pledges, even because they were going to be paid out over time. But During an annual appeal, we reply, and part of that goes back to that, as I mentioned, that Council for Aid Education report. To get consistency, they ask you to tell us cash through the door. That's what they wanted. So that $17 million is what we actually generated in real dollars coming in. If you looked at total development activity, which is pledges, bequests, insurance policies, we were around $23.5 million. And that's pretty good. You're going to see most of the time total development activity is about 20 to 25% above what you bring in, because that accounts for the pledges, the people with long-term commitments, the bequests, and things like that.
Well, we've gotten we've gotten a good bit of money over a 3 or 4 year period.
Absolutely, absolutely,
So I assumed we'll parlay this.
absolutely.
So Joe, every now and then put some asterisk in your report on the high side to your point of order.
Do that.
It doesn't hurt anything.
No, and we see people report that all the time. I mean, you and I had that conversation earlier this fall. We had a sister institution that talked about having a $25 million year. Well, 18 million of it is a pledge that's going to be paid out. One is a bequest that may not see for 25 years, and the other one is a multi-year back-ended pledge. So it's trying to I do it just to compare apples to apples, because it's that way I know where we stand relative to everybody else. But you're right, we can put that out there. Total development activity for the last few years has been about 20 to 25% above what we would tell you in real dollars.
Do you know what amount of pledges you don't get?
We're pretty good. You're never going to get all of them. I think they'll tell you, I hadn't calculated ours lately, but they will tell you it runs somewhere about 90% get fulfilled, but you get a certain percentage that'll get reduced. Because part of the problem, if you do a pledge, for example, as a bequest, somebody makes their pledge to their estate value could go up or go down. If you had a lot of stock last year, your net worth went down. And so you get about 80+% of the real dollars, and about 90% fulfill some or all of that. So we've been very lucky. Now, we lose more of the smaller pledges, the $100 pledge where somebody has said yes to a student caller online simply to get the student off the line.
Yeah.
And we know that exists.
Any further questions of Joseph?
Thank you all.
Well done.
Thank you.
James?
Yes, I have a clarification on the parking policy. There was not a reference to the corresponding parking rule that we'll have a hearing on at our full board meeting. So I just want to ask that a motion be presented that the corresponding rule is approved as well.
Is that in this committee? It is, because Ron just made the thing.
Yes.
Well, would someone make a motion to mirror what James
That the corresponding
suggestion?
rule be included as well. I'll make that motion.
Motion's been made.
I'll
Joby,
second.
Good. Pam, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Looks
Thank
like
you.
we got a unanimous, oh, thank you. Any other comments or questions? I'd like to boast for the president. It looks like our Shelbyville thing is really going good. And hopefully, press conference in the next 60 days. And it's going to give us a chance to aspire to be number 1 in the country, not number 12. I can do this off the thing, but this may be Ron Malone, or it could be, I'm not sure who, but Nashville Business Journal, Mr. President, lists the entertainment and performance venues. And I'd sure like for us to get Murphy and Miller in that. Because it appears that Miller has 2 or 3 concerts coming up. And we may as well get the recognition. That's kind of free publicity.
Andrew?
Bill White. Bill White.
All right, I was about ready to adjourn, but I missed
We
Bill
got one
White.
more
Come on,
big
Bill.
one, too.
Sorry.
That's an action item.
President was kicking me under there.
Good morning. One item, last item on the agenda today. It's an action item for the FY 23-24 capital outlay request, and that's in tab 5 of your materials, page 79. In the June 14th MTSU board meeting, approval was given to submit the new academic building project for the FY 23-24 MTSU capital outlay request. Since this approval, additional information was received regarding the current applied engineering building project, which is currently in the design phase. In July, the design development cost estimates, including information from trade subcontractors, was received from Denard Construction and revealed that the project is approximately $13 million over the construction bid target amount of $44,720,000. The increase in construction costs is due to abnormally high construction escalation amounts, with building materials and labor costs occurring after the project budget request submission in July 2020. Construction escalation in the 12-month period from March 21 to March 22 alone was over 20%, and has consistently carried 1% escalation rate per month in increases since that date. Working with the project team, approximately $2.8 million in cost-saving measures were identified, but fall much short of the budget deficit amount. To bring the project within budget would require approximately 35,000 square feet of space to be left as shell only. That's unfinished interior space in the project. This reduction would include leaving the entire east wing and third floor of the building shelled out as interior space only. This area comprises faculty and departmental offices, classrooms and laboratory space, without which would impede the success of the project and the engineering technology programs. Due to the unique circumstances of the current construction market, the Tennessee Higher Education Commission is allowing institutions of higher learning the option to request additional funding on current projects for their FY 23-24 capital outlay request. Board approval is requested to change our FY 23-24 capital outlay request from the new academic building project to request $19.9 million in funds to be added to the existing applied engineering building project to cover increases in construction costs, increases in movable equipment costs, and then additional inflation contingency to get us to construction when that funding would be available in July 23. Thanks for your consideration, and certainly please let me know if you have any questions about this item.
Just to add to Bill's presentation, all of the institutions that have had capital projects approved have seen that significant increase due to inflation. Austin P had a $70 million building that went $30 million. Is that right, Bill?
Yes, sir. I think it was the Health Sciences building. I think their request, they're doing the same type of request this year. I think it's $32 million is what they're requesting for the project.
And as the nature of the environment and inflation has really had a significant impact on the cost of capital.
So just to clarify, you said this, Bill, but I'm just repeating what you're saying. The request for increased budget is not because we changed the scope. It's not because we increased the scope. It's pure and simply because as we've begun to price the job, it's substantially more expensive in today's dollars. And the state has told us that we could make a request for that increase in spending, as they're telling all other schools the same thing.
But it does put the project that we have tentatively approved on the back
burner.
And Mr. DeLay, you're absolutely correct. We've actually gone, before we even started design on this one, we kind of saw what was going on in the market. We actually reduced square footage by 5% based on our submittal going into it, knowing we were probably, likely going to run into trouble along the way. So we haven't expanded scope. I think if anything, we've kind of sharpened our pencil and cut back as much as we can, try to be economical, I think, from the outset of design on it. But like I said, it wasn't certainly not enough to get us where we needed to get without cutting, program square footage out that we really need.
Bill, I have a request. I had a head start since we talked about this last week. But So our request is going to go from 60 or 70 million to 30. I mean,
100.
right?
To 20, 19.9, correct.
Is that what we're asking for?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
But we were asking for 50 or 60.
Well, it was going to be, it was 99 million, it was right at 100 was our request.
So-
That's correct.
Every other school has that gap as well. Not the same gap, but have a
Right.
gap because they're going to have to take up the slack with this year.
Right.
I'd like to know what that number is, a guesstimate on what schools, we were shooting for 100, we may not have gotten it, but we were shooting for 100, now we're shooting for 20. And if you add that gap of the 4 or 5 schools that provide building, there's going to be surplus money, because the state's got plenty of money right now. And we need to work on trying to get our legitimate share of that surplus money. Austin Peay's not asking for another building and 30 million.
That's correct.
We're not asking for another building and 20 million.
That's correct. We are limited to one request per year, and of course, this would certainly be that one request.
But seeing how it's going, every school that has a building is going to be doing it. I mean, because they've all had cost overrun or guesstimate. So there's going to be some slack money there. Are you with me?
Sure.
Okay. I'd like to have a gross estimate, not as good as Mark's estimate with students, but a gross estimate on how much slack might be in the state, and you know that they're not going to invest that in bonds. We got a shot at some of it.
I think it's also important to note, Bill, and you can confirm this, that TEC actually went to the Department of Finance and requested before we asked about being able to substitute whether or not they would make up that difference, because we felt, like you, Mr. Chairman, that the state was rolling in money, in the surplus, and they told TEC no, that they would want the universities to make a decision about requesting to fill that gap. And our thinking is this: if we decided not to do that and push for the 90 million, the $100 million, it is very unlikely that would become a top priority regardless of how much money the state has in capital project. So the best and wise decision was we already have most of the money for that applied engineering building, to go out and get that funded and then deal with, our top request that we initially had, the $99 to $100 million down the road. So that was our thinking.
Agreed.
Can you clarify for me this, if the budget increases on this building, the policy we adopted earlier about the 25%, if we should ever be so fortunate, is the 25% on the final or is the 25% on the original?
Good clarification. 25% deals with the naming. There's the matching gift that hasn't changed at the state, so that's not connected.
Okay, not connected to this. Okay.
I'm guessing if we got 25% of a $50 million bill,
We'd do it
it's 10
anyway.
over, we'd still want.
Okay.
I mean,
That's right, it's
that's,
LD.
that's,
All right.
Bill, is it correct, am I correct in assuming that you can't apply for a partial, meaning like architectural and engineering drawings for our $99 million building? I'm hoping that with this slash money or the money that is going to be out there, that maybe we could ask for engineering, architectural on the 99, so that would be a big head start for whenever we can apply for it.
The State Building Commission policy, and I think they've allowed that in previous years, Mr. Smith, but I'd say recently, probably 4 or 5 years ago, they really it really kind of ended our ability, the building, and I'm saying the building commission kind of prohibited our ability to go in and really do planning, extensive planning with architectural engineering firms ahead of a project being approved or a project being funded. So
That makes sense.
typically they reserve, feasibility studies. You might be able to get some kind of conceptual images in and things like that, but really it's more programming, looking at the square footage, the functional components of the building, and that sort of thing. So it's difficult. And of course, on a lot of our projects, I say it would be great if we could do that, even on the gift-giving side. Certainly having that, some of that imagery ahead of the project going forward is a great way to raise money, because everybody wants to see certainly what it looks like and what it's going to be before they certainly, make a donation. But, there might be some preliminary things we can do on it. Certainly, I've talked with Mary Hufstrelli in the back there and Dean Lyons. We want to certainly continue our effort moving forward. And I've talked about certainly it may give us an opportunity to get a more specialized consultant to look at some of our work that we're doing internally and progress that and keep that work going. We've kind of paused it for the time being, but certainly, we're not going to let the dust settle on the work we've done and keep moving along with it.
Good. Any questions of Bill? I think we're lucky to have Bill. He does a heck of a good job. I appreciate your work.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, it's an action item.
Sorry?
It's an action item.
Okay, it's an action item. That means we need a motion to approve the change that Bill suggests.
So move.
We have a second?
Second it.
Second. Questions, comments? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous.
Thank you.
Well, Christine felt me heading towards adjournment and reminded me I missed something, so if there isn't anything else.
No, we're done.
We're good.
Thanks, and we're adjourned.
All right.
Good meeting.
You got any other big announcements?